Hey everybody, it's Lisa from the Silver Farmhouse. This is Susie on day 3. So you can see Susie rose and fell a little bit just by the markings on the side of the jar. Now listen, in this kit that I bought from Hobby Lobby, they give you a little blue rubber band, and we'll talk about that towards the end. So day 3, we are going to start to stir Susie. I'm just going to stir her up to incorporate all the goodness that's in that jar together. So we're going to stir, and I'm going to tell you one tip here. Get yourself a food scale. I found a food scale is working great because we're going to need to measure out 60 grams of flour, 60 grams of water every day or maybe twice a day. And we are also going to have to measure 60 grams of the starter itself. So after I'm done stirring, we're just going to get a clean jar to start with. And we are going to measure out 60 grams of our starter that we have in this jar. Again, this scale works great. I got this scale at Target. This one was a little bit more pricey. It was $19.99, but I wanted a larger scale. That way I can use it for a big bowl also. And you always have to remember when using your scale, you have to tare it first. Tare it. What that does is it zeroes it out with the jar and the contents, okay? Now, right now I'm using the jar, I'm tearing the jar that I have here, but I decide that I want to put it in a new glass jar. Seems to be the best way to go for me. So I'm gonna grab a new glass mason jar here, and we are going to transfer out 60 grams of the starter that we have in the jar currently. So I'm just gonna hit my tare button. You place your jar on your scale, you hit tare so it zeroes it out now. Now we're going to measure out 60 grams of this starter into the new clean glass jar. Phew, that took a little while to get it at 60 grams, but we finally got it at 60 grams. Now, this stuff that's left in the jar, I am going to discard it, okay? Susie is not up and running yet. I don't know if she is going to work correctly yet, so I am not going to keep that part of the starter, but you can keep your discard that you are getting rid of for another starter or give it to someone so they can have part of your starter. But I'm not going to keep it. We are now going to add 60 grams of flour to our 60 grams of starter. Make sure you tare your scale. You want it back to 0. So I'm just going to get 60 grams of all-purpose flour right in with our starter. After you get to your 60 grams of flour, remember, we're going to do 60 grams of water also now. Your water needs to be filtered room temperature water, okay? I use my fridge. It has a filter on it, and then I leave the glass sit out on the counter until it gets to room temperature. Oops, got a little too much in there this time, too. I'll get the knack of this measuring out flour and water sooner or later. Thank heavens for the scale. Now I have my filtered water that's been sitting out on my counter. We are going to add 60 grams of filtered water right in with our starter and our flour. Once you have your 60 grams of water added in, give it a stir until it's well incorporated. Now that I have my starter all stirred up and incorporated, I am just going to take my rubber spatula and make sure I clean the sides very well. This is so that we can see if it's going to rise and fall. That means it's hungry or not hungry. So by cleaning your sides, you'll be able to see if your starter is rising and falling. I'm just going to take a little wet paper towel and clean up the sides inside a little more. They don't have to be spotless, but you know me, I have a little bit of OCD, so I'm just going to clean it up. The next step is to get a rubber band. You're going to want to place the rubber band around the outside of your jar, right where your starter ends, okay, right at the very edge of your starter. This is just so we could see on day 4 if it rose or if it fell. If it does rise, it's doing good. If it falls, it means it is hungry. We will go over how many times on day 4 you can feed your starter. Right now, I could feed my starter up to 2 times a day, depending on if it falls. I will check it in the morning and I will check it at night to see if it needs to eat in the morning and if it also needs to eat at night. But feeding it one day is also good too. Stick with me and let's see what day 4 holds for our starter. You do want to place the lid back on, lightly screw it on or just place it on top. And you're going to want to leave this sit on your counter for another 24 hours.